Imagine walking into a store and everything you want to buy costs less than yesterday. Sounds great, right? But when prices keep falling, it can actually spell trouble for the entire economy. This phenomenon, called deflation, can slow growth, hurt businesses, and even trigger a financial crisis. Today, we're breaking down why falling prices aren't always a good thing, and why deflation can be more dangerous than inflation. Today, we will talk about deflation explained, why falling prices are dangerous. So, before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Understanding deflation, the basics. Deflation is the economic phenomenon where the general price level of goods and services in an economy decreases over time. Unlike inflation, where prices rise and the value of money falls, deflation increases the purchasing power of money. At first glance, this may seem beneficial for consumers. After all, you can buy more with the same amount of money. However, deflation is often a symptom of deeper economic problems, and sustained deflation can have far-reaching consequences for both businesses and individuals. While short-term price drops can be advantageous, long-term deflation typically signals weak demand, falling production, and economic stagnation. Economists closely monitor deflation because its persistence can indicate an economy in serious trouble. 2. Causes of deflation. Deflation can occur due to several interconnected factors, including reduced consumer spending, technological advancements, and monetary policy issues. One major cause is a decrease in aggregate demand, where consumers and businesses reduce their spending, often due to economic uncertainty or declining incomes. This drop in demand forces businesses to lower prices to attract buyers, triggering a deflationary cycle. Technological improvements and increased productivity can also drive prices down by making goods cheaper to produce. However, unlike productivity-driven price decreases, which are generally positive, demand-driven deflation can be harmful. Additionally, a contractionary monetary policy, such as high interest rates or limited money supply, can restrict the flow of money in the economy, further exacerbating deflation. 3. Deflation versus inflation. Why falling prices aren't always good. While inflation erodes the value of money and can hurt savers, moderate inflation is often considered healthy for economic growth. Deflation, on the other hand, can be much more dangerous because it discourages spending and investment. When consumers expect prices to fall further, they delay purchases, leading to reduced demand. This behavior can cause a vicious cycle. Lower spending leads to lower production, which leads to layoffs and wage cuts, which in turn reduces spending even further. Unlike inflation, which central banks can often manage with interest rate adjustments, deflation is harder to combat, particularly if it becomes entrenched. 4. The deflationary spiral, a self-reinforcing cycle. One of the most dangerous aspects of deflation is the deflationary spiral. In this scenario, falling prices lead to lower revenues for businesses, forcing them to cut costs, lay off workers, or reduce investment. As unemployment rises, households have less income to spend, further depressing demand. This cycle perpetuates itself, with prices continuing to fall and the economy entering a prolonged period of stagnation. Historical examples, such as the Great Depression in the 1930s, illustrate how devastating a deflationary spiral can be, with widespread unemployment, bankruptcies, and social distress. Once a deflationary spiral sets in, reversing it requires aggressive monetary and fiscal policies, often taking years to restore economic stability. 5. Impact on consumers and businesses. At first, consumers may seem to benefit from deflation because their money can buy more goods and services. However, prolonged deflation harms consumers indirectly through rising unemployment and falling wages. Businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises, suffer as declining prices reduce profit margins. Companies may be forced to postpone expansion, cut research and development, or even declare bankruptcy if revenues continue to drop. Investment also slows because the real value of debt increases. Borrowing becomes more expensive in real terms, discouraging both corporate and personal investment. Consequently, deflation can create a stagnant economic environment where neither businesses nor consumers feel confident spending, further reinforcing economic weakness. 6. Deflation and debt, a dangerous combination. Deflation significantly increases the real burden of debt. For individuals, this means mortgages, personal loans, and credit card balances become harder to repay because the value of money rises while incomes may fall. For businesses, loans and other financial obligations also become more expensive in real terms. This can lead to higher default rates, bank failures, and a credit crunch, further amplifying the economic slowdown. In countries with high public debt, deflation can make government obligations more difficult to manage, increasing the risk of fiscal crises. Economists often warn that deflation is particularly dangerous in highly leveraged economies because even moderate deflation can trigger widespread financial instability. 7. Historical examples of deflation. Several historical instances highlight the dangers of deflation. The Great Depression of the 1930s in the United States saw consumer prices fall by nearly 10% in some years, accompanied by massive unemployment, business closures, and a collapse in the banking system. Japan experienced a prolonged period of deflation in the 1990s and early 2000s, often referred to as the lost decade, where stagnant growth, low consumer spending, and falling property prices created long-term economic challenges. In both cases, deflation was accompanied by severe social and economic consequences, demonstrating that while falling prices may appear advantageous in the short term, their long-term effects can be catastrophic for economic stability. 8. Combating deflation, policy responses and solutions. Central banks and governments use various tools to fight deflation. Monetary policy is a primary method, often involving lowering interest rates or implementing quantitative easing to increase the money supply. By making borrowing cheaper and encouraging spending, central banks aim to stimulate demand and halt the deflationary trend. Fiscal policy is also crucial. Governments can increase public spending, provide tax cuts, or offer incentives to encourage consumption and investment. Structural reforms, such as labor market flexibility, innovation incentives, and support for small businesses can also help. Preventing deflation before it becomes entrenched is far easier than reversing it once a deflationary spiral takes hold. Awareness, proactive policy, and coordinated economic planning are essential to avoid the severe consequences of falling prices. Deflation, despite seeming beneficial at first due to falling prices, carries significant risks for an economy. By reducing demand, increasing the real burden of debt, and triggering a deflationary spiral, prolonged deflation can harm consumers, businesses, and governments alike. Historical examples like the Great Depression and Japan's lost decade serve as stark reminders of how dangerous persistent deflation can be. Combating deflation requires a mix of proactive monetary, fiscal, and structural policies to maintain economic stability. Understanding deflation is not just an academic exercise. It's essential for policymakers, investors, and everyday citizens who want to navigate the complexities of modern economies safely. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.